On a cold winter night in the late 1952, the narrow streets of the small town of Suchis in southern Czechoslovakia lay silent. A quiet town, with small houses and cobbled alleys, where life moved slowly but steadily. In this very town, years earlier, a girl was born who would later become the nightmare of many families. Her name was Maria Fikachkova, born on the 9th of September, 1936. She grew up in a modest family, not rich but not destitute either. Her childhood appeared ordinary, yet the world around her was shaped by the scars of World War II. Her family had German roots, and in post-war Czechoslovakia, being of German descent often meant hostility and exclusion. For a little girl, that sense of rejection may have been the first emotional wound that stayed with her. Maria grew older and decided to become a nurse, a respectable and common choice for women of that era. Nursing promised steady income, social respect, and, above all, unconditional trust from people. She trained at a nursing school, and once she completed her studies, she was assigned to the maternity ward of the town hospital, a place where she was supposed to bring hope and care to new mothers and their babies. To her colleagues, Maria seemed quiet, modest, and calm. She had short hair, a pale face, and wore the crisp white uniform of her profession. Nobody could have guessed that behind this ordinary appearance, darkness was waiting to surface. As she would later admit herself, something had always boiled inside her. She could not bear the sound of crying infants. What symbolized life and joy to others, to Maria was like a piercing knife in her head. And whenever her menstrual period began, that inner rage and agitation would intensify. In 1957, at the age of 21, Maria crossed the line for the first time. A newborn, only a few days old, lay in the maternity ward healthy, but crying endlessly. Maria picked up the infant, but instead of soothing the baby, she squeezed its tiny throat until the cries went silent forever. By morning, doctors assumed the child had died of weakness, as so many did in those days. No one suspected Maria. That day, she realized she could kill without being caught. From then on, killing became a pattern. Whenever she felt overwhelmed by a crying baby or simply irritated, she ended their lives. Sometimes she struck their fragile bodies against a wall. Sometimes she suffocated them with her hands. In certain cases, she broke their limbs before death. The brutality was cold and merciless, but the perfect cover lay in medicine itself. Infant mortality was common, and each death was attributed to heart failure, congenital defects, or general weakness. Imagine the horror. A mother, exhausted but joyful, entrusting her newborn to a nurse she believed would protect the child. Hours later, she would hear the devastating news her baby was gone. The mother would collapse in grief, the father stunned and silent, while Maria stood calmly nearby, her secret untouched. This cycle repeated itself, again and again. Between 1957 and 1960, the number of infant deaths in the hospital grew suspiciously high. Doctors wrote the usual causes on death certificates, but something didn't add up. Finally, in February 1960, 2 infants died within days, showing unmistakable signs of violence, bruises, fractures, and injuries that no natural cause could explain. For the first time, suspicion arose. Authorities were alerted, and just 4 days later, Maria was arrested. The staff was in shock. Could the quiet, dutiful nurse really be behind these tragedies? At first, Maria denied everything, but the autopsies spoke for themselves. Under pressure, she eventually confessed. Her words would forever haunt investigators. "I only wanted them to be quiet." Interrogators were baffled. How could a young nurse, a woman trusted with new life, become a predator of the most innocent? Psychologists examined her. Some argued she suffered from a mental disorder that worsened during her menstrual cycles. Others believed years of social rejection and emotional repression had bred a monstrous rage that she unleashed on the weakest beings she could find. Yet no explanation could undo the devastation for the parents whose children were stolen from them. Her trial began in 1961. The courtroom overflowed with grieving families. Mothers sobbed uncontrollably. Fathers clenched their fists in silent fury. The press covered the case with sensational headlines. The prosecutor painted her as a cold-blooded murderer. Her defense attorney tried desperately to argue that she was mentally ill rather than evil, but her own confessions and the evidence left little room for doubt. Officially, she was convicted of murdering 2 infants, though investigators believe the real number was much higher. The verdict was death. On the 13th of April, 1961, inside Prague's Pankrak prison, Maria Fikachkova walked to the gallows. Witnesses noted her composure, no signs of regret, no visible fear. With a chilling calmness, she accepted her fate. The rope tightened, and her life ended at the age of 24. But her story did not die with her. To this day, criminologists and psychologists study the case of Maria Fikachkova, searching for answers. Was she born a monster, or shaped by her environment? Could she have been treated, or was her destiny bound to tragedy from the start? For society, the lesson was sobering. Hospitals changed their procedures, greater oversight was enforced, and yet the case remains a haunting reminder. Sometimes the greatest dangers hide behind the faces we trust the most. Maria Fikachkova entered history as the angel of death of Czechoslovakia. Even now, decades later, her name echoes as a warning. Trust, once given blindly, can carry the highest cost.